All right, well, we have a big story.
Other cities don't
we have a big story tonight looking at the city of Detroit. I sat down with Nikolai Vitti, who is the superintendent of the Detroit Public School Community District, and I sat down with him before the beginning of school to kind of get an idea of how the year is going to shape up. It's his second year on the job, but I really wanted to look at, they have a new curriculum this year that they have to train their teachers accordingly as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at what he had to say.
When I visit schools and I see the data, I hear what the principal said, now I get to see it.
We're here with some teacher training and the teacher in service, and they're getting their classrooms ready. What are some of them saying to you about their readiness for the beginning of the year, and do they feel that they have the tools to be able to succeed with these kids?
I think, when you look at where we are from a resource point of view, we can always go deeper and broader at greater scale to meet the needs of our children. But anecdotally, what I'm hearing from teachers is that for the first time, they feel like the district is proactively trying to provide them with better tools to be successful in the classroom.
Let's talk a little bit about the teacher training this summer and the change the district made with the curriculum. Why was it necessary to even change your K-8 curriculum in math and in literacy?
Well, we did a curriculum audit in literacy and math at the K-8 level, and that audit clearly indicated that the materials that are used in the class, what we call curriculum, was woefully below grade level expectations.
And when you saw that audit, did you say, wait a minute, how long have they been operating this way, and why did we continue to do that?
Yeah, I sensed that in the interview process. I was starting to do my research and looked at materials they were using. Even in the interview process, I was able to visit schools and look at the materials. And so just based on my background and experience, I could tell that the materials were outdated, but our audit allowed for an independent review so it didn't look personal or political. And it revealed what I thought, which was the curriculum was below grade level. And so what that meant was that when teachers, for example, were teaching the 5th grade curriculum, and the state says that students need to have a certain understanding based on 5th grade standards, our teachers and students were automatically at a disadvantage.
Talk to me specifically about some of the changes that we're going to see in literacy and just different ways they're going to be teaching kids.
So, I think we can all go back to middle school, even elementary school, where we learned with those big, bulky anthologies, where we read excerpts of stories. And sometimes I remember as a student, well, I want to learn more about that, or why am I just reading excerpt, or why am I reading about one thing this day and something else the other day? We're going back to novels. So students will actually get a hard copy novel and read books front to back. In our classrooms, we're going to do more writing, talking about do you agree or disagree with what the author was talking about. We're going to compare a book to a poem where you can compare and contrast that work. There will be more Socratic circles, more discussion of text. So students can apply what they're learning, synthesize what they're learning, analyze what they're learning, rather than just doing bubble type of answers. We're moving to a model where students will finally understand the concepts of math. So too often we teach math formulaically, which is just memorize the right answer because it's the right answer.
Right.
And that's why a lot of our students are disengaged when it comes to math. They don't understand the mechanics of math or the thinking behind the math. So this is why our country, I think, especially struggles with creating engineers, and why we are outsourcing, if you would, other countries to bring in that talent. And so a lot of that has to do with how children are not taught math appropriately. So with this new curriculum, they'll start to understand math conceptually, not just memorizing math.
And how does this fit into master teaching and the fact that you're trying to have master teachers come in and help some of the teachers along the way and get them more integrated to what you're doing?
Yeah, the feedback at the beginning of the year, or last year when I started, was a lot of our teachers were starting to feel burnt out professionally, meaning they've been in the classroom for a while, they love teaching, they love being with the kids, but professionally they didn't know what the next step was. So what we thought of is creating a master teacher role where the master teachers would be selected through a rigorous process with the district and principals. And once selected, they would teach part of the day, and then the other part of the day they would go into classrooms, mainly new teachers or struggling teachers, model lessons, facilitate professional development, help with lesson plan development. And this way, I think it's a strategy to retain some of our higher performing veteran teachers.
I would think that somewhere along the line, the teachers say, okay, now we've got a new curriculum, that it's aligned more with the state Common Core standards. I'm eventually going to be graded on how well my students do
That's right.
here. So give me a little bit of a big picture look and how long you expect to see possibly some kind of change in the test scores, because that's really what the district is being held up to at this
I
point.
think at the end of this year, we're going to see improvement with the percentage of students that are performing at or above grade level. I think that's going to happen district-wide and really look different at individual schools where fidelity of implementation is high. So I think that's just initially this first year. The second year of implementation is, I think, where we're going to see even more improvement, because now you get you are able to iron out the kinks from the first year implementation, and you're really starting to better understand the curriculum the second year. And that's why I've been saying in about 3 to 4 years then, we're going to start to see improvement nationally on the National Assessment for Educational Progress, especially for this year's first graders, because they had been exposed to better curriculum starting in first grade, even a little bit last year with some of the diagnostic work we did in reading. And I think when they become fourth graders and they take that national assessment, I think we're going to see definitely improvement nationally as far as national assessment scores are concerned.
You've talked a lot about equity in schools and how across the state you have very different districts operating in very different ways, and until everyone understands that every child deserves to have a quality education, we're not going to get very far. Do you feel that that message of equity in our schools, especially here in the state of Michigan, has started to resonate with people?
No. I think it's an issue that's clearly understood by Detroiters because they live the reality of inequity every day. But it isn't resonating statewide. I think the fear that we have in this country and in the state of Michigan, that it's always a conversation about, well, if you give more here, you're taking away somewhere else. And that is a zero-sum game. And we have to think beyond that, where we look at every individual child, and what is equal is not equitable. What is equitable is giving a child an equal opportunity for academic and civic success. And that happens through the traditional public education system. So a child in Birmingham may need X, but a child in Detroit who's facing poverty may need Y. And what we should be talking about nationally in the state of Michigan is, how does a child in Birmingham and Detroit have equal opportunity for academic and civic success through the traditional public school system? We haven't figured that out yet on the national level and the Michigan level, and until we do that, we're going to continue to find children that fall behind because they're just not given the resources to compete with a child who is growing up in a more middle class background and home where privilege provides them opportunity.
A lot of great points he made in talking about how this new curriculum is going to work, and also with the teachers who are doing it. I did speak to him right before the M-STEP results came out, so I wasn't able to get his take on that, which is, of course, the scores, not only statewide, but in Detroit, were very difficult.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're still adjusting to this new test, which, you know, every time you switch the test, the scores go down because now the curriculum's not necessarily aligned with what you're testing. We got to not panic about that. We have to say, listen, we're going to stay the course and try to let this take hold. And this curriculum that Vitti has introduced is part of that, right? It's part of, you know, adjusting what we're doing so that we can perform better on that M-STEP test. And we're probably a couple years from that happening.
What do you expect to see from Dr. Vitti this year and from the district itself?
I think his priority's in the right place. It all starts with teaching. And if he's going to give teachers the support and the skills, the training they need, and if he's willing to weed out the people who are underperforming. I mean, we've been, as part of this education reform movement over the last 25 years, a lot of it came down to a war on teachers. That needs to end. We need to give these folks in the classroom the support, resources they need. We need to hold them accountable, but we need to give them the tools they need to succeed.
And there was a big announcement just last week coming out of Marygrove, and a concerted effort with Detroit Public Schools and also the University of Michigan, kind of this P20 system.
Yeah, this idea that all of it's got to work together and can do that in one spot. They've got the space at Marygrove to have a P20 campus, but the School of Ed at Michigan is going to be heavily involved in teacher training and the way that we make teachers effective in the classroom right there on that campus. All this stuff is sort of coming together and aligning at the right times. And again, we just got to be patient. It's not gonna, you're not flipping a switch and the light's gonna come on tomorrow. You're warming up the bulb so that the light can come on. It's gonna be a couple of years before we see the results.
Well, and I think that's really difficult though for a parent who has a 10-year-old in the school district and is saying, how many years can I wait with my child?
I've got two kids I've had to educate outside the public school system for most of the time they've been here. There's nobody more frustrated about that than I am, but I also understand enough about how schools work, how education works, that we can't just keep lurching at the quick solution. We can't lurch for the thing that people say, well, this will solve it in 2 years or 3 years. It really is 5 or 10 before you get it
Nor
fixed.
can you expect parents who have just one chance to get their kids educated to stay in place and say, okay, we're going to let you experiment on our children. You know, there are too many other options. They're fighting a vicious circle.
And when we talk about that in Michigan and kind of taking the broader view of where we are, and we hear education being part of the governor's race, and you hear also different consortiums saying, well, we're going to focus on changing education and making sure the business community is behind that. Where are we seeing that effort go?
Well, I'm not sure where it's going in Michigan. I mean, I think we're still stalled in terms of a single approach that everybody buys into in terms of which way we're headed. M-STEP is, I think, an encouraging sign that way, but we have a lot of other questions to address, including funding, accountability, funding equity across districts that I don't see any traction in Lansing to deal with any of that.
Last word on that, Nolan.
I think you see business leaders of Michigan coming up. They've given up on the big sweeping solution. They're focused on teacher training and resources. I don't think anything's going to change in Michigan until we get rid of the bifurcated system, hold the governor solely accountable for education, and get rid of that elected school board.